Well, hello from the Stade de France. It all kicks off here tomorrow. France against Ireland in the opening game of the Six Nations. It is a lovely day here in Paris, but it kind of brings back the memories, lads, doesn't it? Now, I was here for the Olympics, but the last time you were here was the 23 World Cup.
Yeah, it's definitely giving World Cup vibes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's, it's my first game here since the World Cup final, and it was, it hasn't changed a bit. It's
No.
Looking resplendent, and the fact that we were the waddies with the bodies yesterday on our video at the team hotel. It's a bit nicer today. Set up, if it's like this tomorrow night, we'll be in for a bit of a cracker. I'm not sure the forecast is showing that way, but yeah, it's nice to be back in Paris. It's been a good buzz. There's very few Irish fans around, which is very different to the World Cup. Maybe by Thursday people will start flooding in. I'm not sure, but that's the kind of the point of difference for this game. But yeah, it's nice to be back.
Yeah, a bit of a different feel.
Yeah, a bit of PTSD as well, I have to admit. Walking in, the last time I was here was the weekend of the quarterfinals, and two of the still stands, I think, alone, and will be hard to beat as like up there with two of the best games I think you'll ever see. Obviously disappointing from an Ireland point of view. Obviously a lot of still the same faces, but a very new look Ireland team as well, which I think gives it kind of fresh vibes as well.
Yeah, so the teams have been named, the benches have been named. Like, where are you now kind of on this kind of doom spectrum? Because there has been kind of a sense of fatalism around this game in terms of what this French team could inflict on Ireland. Where are you now on it?
I'm probably on an upswing as the game approaches.
Yeah,
I can build a case for Ireland winning. I think, if you're being sensible and you're kind of going with the form lines, the numbers, the way things have trended over the last year, the injury list that Ireland have, and the lack of depth in certain positions, particularly a loose head prop, it's understandable why the bookies are giving France a 13-point start on the spread. But I think there is a way Ireland win this game. It will take, I think, an off day for the French, but they're capable of that. We've seen that, in Twickenham last year. They are capable of leaving chances behind, getting overconfident. I was interested that no French media turned up at the Ireland team announcement in Paris yesterday. I wonder, are Ireland just guests at a bit of a French party? And sometimes that can feed into a sense of overconfidence, and France beat Ireland really well last year, so if they're off their game a little bit, and if the Irish main men, the leading men, if they step up and play the way we know they can play, but what we haven't seen this year, Tyburn rediscovers his lines to form, that will give confidence to the newer faces. Even the newer faces who are in the team, they're not that young. It's not like these pitched in like 20-year-olds. They're all established club players with a lot of experience. Some of them have real points to prove, and they have a very strong bench. I think they have a very strong aerial back three. If they can force French errors and then be hungrier on the deck, if they can win the scraps, if they can be desperate to make things happen but not desperate so that they give away penalties, and if they hold their own set piece, there's a lot of ifs. But if those things go well, this is still a very good collection of Irish players. We haven't seen them in a very good team for a while, but the ingredients are all there. They've got a great coach. They've had their 10 days in Portugal to prepare. I know it was a more limited time span, but often they produce their best performances at the start of Six Nations. So absolutely, if Ireland turn up and play well, they'll be in this, but it's going to take something really special, and it will go down as one of the great Andy Farrell wins if he pulls this off.
Yeah, Cian, you've been down in Portugal with them over the past week, so what's your sense of where they're at now?
I think Andy Farrell, like Rudd has outlined, will feed into that. Everyone is writing us off now. All that said, this wasn't part of a big master plan to have the likes of Jeremy Loughman and Michael Milne in the match day 23. I think someone like Jacob Stockdale has forced his way in on form and fully merits his selection. I like that he's playing on the wing as well. I know he was probably in contention to start fullback as well, but particularly at international level, I think he's far more comfortable on the wing. He's in there as a form selection. I think Cian Prendergast, what a massive opportunity it is for him as well. So all these guys have earned their shot in some cases, some on the back of injuries, but now they have to take their chance. Like the mood, I would say, in Portugal over the last week was quite bullish, but I don't know, I'd be interested to get your thoughts. We were both obviously at Andy Farrell's press conference yesterday, and I didn't quite get I get the sense that he's worried. I didn't get I know he said like it's time to be fearless and all that, but I was kind of thinking back to his quotes like, this is living, this is big boy stuff around the time of the World Cup. I wasn't getting those same vibes, and it was only kind of when I sat down after the press conference to really do a deep dive on the French team. Like this backline that Ireland are playing against tomorrow, for me, is up there with South Africa's right now as the best backline in world rugby. Just absolutely immense. I look at the pack and I'm still not convinced it has the right balance to it. I think Gregory Aldridge being left out of the squad is puzzling to me. I think the back five of their forwards looks a little imbalanced. I think you've got like Anthony Gelange, who has played number 8 plenty of times, but I think he's more comfortable on the flank. You've Charles Olivon playing in the second row. He's obviously more comfortable in the back row. So you've got a little bit of square pegs and round holes. Dorian Aldergary, who's starting tight head, I don't think he's no Weenie Antonio, which I think is going to be another factor for France in terms of trying to play, to deliver a victory for him. But I don't see Aldergary being like this fearsome scrummager either. And I think Jeremy Loughman, what he did in Toulon a few weeks ago, that's probably what earned him the opportunity here. And that day as well, it was Carl Dixon refereeing. So there are things in Ireland's favour, but I agree with you, Rod. Like, so many things have to go right, and I do think France would need an off day as well, but I think they're going to be absolutely humming.
So what do you read of that? Well, I think actually Andy Farrell is right to kind of be a bit more realistic. You remember how he came out just after the World Cup, before the 24 Six Nations, and he was like, we're over this this World Cup, but I thought he set the tone. But I think it's right to be more realistic about this. What was your reading of him yesterday?
Well, I think a little fear can be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ireland rightly had a huge amount of confidence between 2021 and 2024, and like, they went to South Africa and won. They, had won a Grand Slam, backed it up with the Six Nations. They were brilliant at the World Cup. And even in defeat, they contributed to an amazing game. I know they didn't get over the line that night, but they were still going right out there to right to the death against New Zealand. So they were rightly considered one of the top 4 teams in the world, and they'd never had any fear got out against any team. And you could see that in their performances. Now they're kind of in a very different space. They've lost heavily to 3 of the best teams in the world in the last year, including France, who came to Dublin and did a real number on them. So they should be stung by that. Like, they should be really, like, I know Andy Farrell was quite proud of the South African performance in terms of how they scrambled, but like that's way below where Ireland, getting scrummaged off the park on your own turf, getting this, destroyed in contact. That all should sting this group of players. The way France went and hammered them, I know they got a couple of tries at the end, Ireland, in that game, but it got away from them quite badly. New Zealand got away from them quite badly. So I would say there's been, I believe there was a lot of mixing and matching in training. A lot of the younger players, the less established players, were given a lot of reps in Portugal. I think the old guard are kind of on notice. In terms of, like, you need to keep delivering or start delivering again, or else your places are going to be under threat. The question is whether the next batch of players is as good, and a few of them have a chance to show it here. So that fear, coming to Paris, even at Ireland's best, and when France were at a low ebb, wins here were hard, and they were never guaranteed. Like Johnny Sexton in 2018, they had to, what was it, 84th minute of injury time, or 84th minute of the game, 40-something phases and a drop goal to win a game, and they go and win a Grand Slam. It's never easy here, so that should clarify their minds, and that fear should mean that they're on it tomorrow. Yeah. Because if they're not on it, they'll get thrown away.
They're just walking out there now, so a few minutes delayed, but that's kind of nothing new with the Ireland.
Good to see Tyke Furlong.
Oh yes, yeah.
Andy Farrell was saying yesterday that hopefully he'll be back for next week.
Yeah. I think one of the big things as well about that defeat to South Africa was that I don't think many people saw it coming. So I think we're almost we're so well aware that something, God, there's been a lot of talk about that they could be at the end of a tough defeat tomorrow, but look, we'll see how it goes. But a discipline, obviously, Cian, has been a big thing as well, obviously with the whole Bundy Aki and suspension last week. They really have to show tomorrow as well, don't they, to Carl Dixon, that they are a team in reform. Yeah,
I think the Bundy Aki, no one wanted obviously that to happen, but I think in a way it probably played into Andy Farrell's hands in terms of using it as a line in the sand moment, that the discipline from everywhere just has to improve, and it's the compounding of silly penalties, and we've seen it across the board with the provinces as well. And I think Dixon is the type of referee, if you get on the wrong side of him early, he could whistle you off the park. So that means around the breakdown, it's around the scrum, it's around the maul, all those little areas. I think Ireland are going to have to be absolutely nailed on, because like you've outlined, Rod, the body of evidence over the last year, I know they played well on the Lions tour, obviously that was in Ireland. They played well, I would say, against Australia in November, but you really have to go back to the first game of the Six Nations last year for when Ireland actually delivered a performance.
And even in the second half of that.
Yeah, and they tend to start Six Nations well. Obviously, we were all in Marseille a couple of years ago where no one gave Ireland an opportunity or a chance there to win, and obviously they delivered an amazing performance. I know that was aided by an early red card for France, wasn't it? So that's another thing, if there's an early red card, it could completely change the course of the game. So the team talk writes itself, I think, for Andy Farrell. He's a man who embraces adversity, wants his players to embrace it, but I think even for him, this is a lot more adversity than he probably would have hoped for.
Yeah, seeing a few of them, Edwin Adolfo out there training with Capstone, many would have thought that he might have made this one. See Jacob Stockdale out there again. gosh, I remember that game he had here against France in COVID times, wasn't it? 2020. Yeah, that was a bit of a bruiser for him.
Well, that's why he hasn't been. There's two reasons why he hasn't been involved. Sorry, three. He's had injuries. James Lowe has been exceptional over a long period of time, but also he had a couple of bad days for Ireland. In 2019 World Cup quarter-final, he was very poor. Here, Ireland came to the Stade de France, was empty. They had a chance to win a championship that year against form, really. And they were terrible, and he was responsible for a couple of really big defensive glaring errors, and that's something he needs to cut out because he's a brilliant attacking force. And I think Andy Farrell has always recognised the fact that Jacob Stockdale, when you give him the ball in a bit of space, he can do huge damage. Like, he broke the record for number of tries. Didn't BL Bray break it last year, but he was BL Bray before BL Bray. Very different player, obviously, but he was prolific. And if they can, I presume Andy Farrell has been in the ear of his senior players this week going, hang on, you got to remind the world of what you are. But he's also, I'm sure, been in Jeremy Loughman's ear, Jacob Stockdale's ear, bigging them up, telling them that he believes in them, telling them that, this is your moment, and they got to take it. Because if Stockdale plays well today, that jersey is his for the Six Nations. James Lowe's down there. He's travelled with the team. He's not completely out. Bundiaki's coming back as well, so McCluskey knows that he's going to have to go well, and I'm sure Bundiaki will come back with a point to prove in a couple of weeks' time. But if you play well here, if you thrive in this environment and you take on France on their home patch, you're an Ireland player then. Like Cian Prendergast, this is an unbelievable chance with Ryan Baird out for the championship. And I think one of the big figures, so you mentioned a dog bowl, but Joe McCarthy being back is huge for Ireland. He was such a miss in November. He's almost he's become one of the most important players in Irish rugby because he sets the physical tone, he wins collisions, and I think he will make a big difference. And he will hunt the French tomorrow. He needs to be disciplined as well because he gave up that yellow card the City one last year. I think he's learned from that. He's talked about it a lot, but I think his presence in that second row will make a big difference to that Ireland pack, and will make a big difference to scrum time as well.
Okay, let's move on to predictions, shall we? I know we have to do the paper. I doubt that they'll be doing what cheer actually in the captain's room because I'm sure they'll be wondering who else will be watching around the stadium. But so how do you see it going tomorrow?
I don't want to bring the tone of the podcast down or the video down, but I'm worried. I am. I think this backline, like I mentioned, are absolutely electric. I cannot wait, obviously, to see Anton Dupont. Anytime you get to see him live, it's just a real treat, and I'm fascinated to see how well he links with Mathieu Jalibert, who has arguably been the form player in Europe this season. Obviously delivered the Champions Cup for Bordeaux last year, and that Bordeaux influence, it used to be really Toulouse heavy, but the backline now is Bordeaux, and you look at the quality of rugby that they've been playing over the last couple of years. I just think the pace that they have in this backline, I think the pack up front, I think will fancy their chances of getting on top of Ireland, particularly at the scrum. So I'm quite fearful. I think if Ireland got a losing bonus point here tomorrow night, they would snap your hand off, but I even think that could be out of reach, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I went 28-13 in the paper, so that's where I'm at with it, with France. I mean, I can build a case for Ireland winning, as I've done, but I can also build a case for this being a very long night, that the French overwhelm Ireland up front, and Sam Prendergast is operating off back football, starts making rash decisions because he's very inexperienced, and that's what happened last year, that they go after him in defence and make him miss tackles, that Jalibert gets the an armchair rider at the Stade de France, and suddenly you have probably the best individual scrum half and arguably the best individual out half, and they suddenly click, and they've got good centres outside them, they've got unbelievable speed on the wing, and it's going to be like the 1990s all over again. I suspect that won't happen, but I think it could get away from Ireland if they're not really on it, and they have to show us. We believed in this Ireland team for a long time because they kept proving it over and over again. They haven't proven themselves for a while. It's up to them to change the perception around the team. It's not just narrative and doom and gloom. It's based on evidence. Like the two games against really good teams in November, they were fairly comprehensively beaten, and they made a lot of mistakes. So I think it could get out of hand. There's ways that it doesn't, but if you're being rational about it, I think it's going to be a France win. And
I know we kind of mentioned Dupont almost in passing there, but he hasn't played since he injured his knee against Ireland in the Six Nations. Like, the crowd here are just going to be so desperate to see him back in a blue jersey, and because he's so good, we kind of don't even give him enough credit, or not give enough credit, but mention him enough. But he is just going to make a massive difference. That would what strikes fear to me as well. But what do you think, Sinead?
Oh yeah, no, I am very worried. Actually, you mentioned Dupont. The last time I saw him play here was at the Olympic Sevens, and the crowd here was actually the loudest I have ever heard. But yeah, I think think it might be a fairly worrying night. But
The Thursday night element is different as well. Like,
yeah,
I think
it
it'll
is.
be a more Parisian crowd. I don't think
Yeah.
as many people will travel up from the south as they would for a Saturday night. I'm not in favour of it as an idea.
No.
I think much rather this was a Saturday game. I mean, I've seen no Irish people in Paris apart from my fellow journalists this week. I presume people are going to start arriving today and probably tomorrow, given it's a 9:10 p.m. local time kickoff, which is really not the Six Nations spirit. It should be a Six Nations weekend.
Yeah.
But I think it will be a different crowd. It'll be a more Parisian crowd. I wonder will it be a crowd that might turn against France quicker if Ireland get on top of them. But there'll probably be fewer pockets of green. It certainly won't be anything like the World Cup crowd that we had last time we were here.
Like going, never want to see a Thursday Six Nations night again.
Potentially.
But yeah, anyway, we'll see. Rowan Keane, thanks a million for that. We'll follow all the media on the Irish Independent website.